Okay, so at this point we find really quite a nasty gotcha. So this concerns next hop self. Router 3 is both running IBGP and CBGP. Now, when a route comes in from CBGP, it's really important that router 3 doesn't apply next hop self, because it's already been applied prior to the CBGP. And likewise, when a route is going from the IBGP towards the CBGP, it's really important that router 3 doesn't set the next hop self there either. Now, to confuse this, our router 3 actually has an external peer as well. And there, it's really important to set the next hop self both directions. So towards the IBGP, it needs to be set, and towards the CBGP. So this is a real Confederation gotcha. It's easily overlooked. So in our keenness to set the next hop self for peer 1, remembering that peer 1, we've had to resolve those routes, the next hop of those routes already, because they were the V4 mapped routes. So in our keenness to set the next hop for this peer 1, we must make sure that towards CBGP we don't set any other next hops, and from CBGP towards IBGP we don't set the next hop self either. And that's because the Confederation really operates as a single IBGP cloud. So that's a real gotcha. We're in between the IBGP and the CBGP, and we have an external peer. So let's just look at the commands anyway. So we've got policy options, AS path, P1 adjacent, and we're just marking the routes that are going to be coming from P1. It's 177.34, and it's any length path. It's anything that's coming from our upstream peer 1. Once we've marked that, AS path, set policy options, AS path, P1 adjacent. Once we have that, then we've got set policy options, policy statement, next hop self, as you would expect, term V6 from BGP, from RibINet 6, from AS path, P1 adjacent, then next hop, and this is our local IPv6 address, and accept, and term 4 from AS path, P1 adjacent, then next hop self. And that gets applied, set protocols, BGP group, internal, export next hop self. So as the routes come in from the external and they go out the internal, that next hop self is being applied, and we're applying it to this sub AS 65,002, and that is the CBGP. But notice that there are no other routes. Routes coming from the internal do not get next hop self towards the CBGP, and routes coming from the CBGP do not get next hop self towards the internal. So that's a real gotcha there. Now let's contrast that with what router 8 is going to be doing. Router 8 is not running CBGP. It has an external peer, and of course it needs to set the next hop. So set protocols BGP group internal, export next hop self, and when we look at the next hop self, set policy options, policy statement next hop self, term v6 from protocol BGP, from RibINet 6, then next hop, this is the IP version 6 address, then on the next line, then accept, and then term v4, then next hop self. So router 8 doesn't need to worry about this. It's not running CBGP. It just marks the next hop self. But router 3 has to be acutely aware as it marks the next hop self in the middle of the IBGP and the CBGP that it only marks next hop self on the external peers.